and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this episode where, as I promised in the last episode, I actually get on with doing some ballasting up the incline and a little bit of scenic work up there, and I've been very impressed with actually doing the ballasting, or the effect of the ballasting. Not quite sure about actually doing the ballasting. Also, we get to have a look at some of the Revolution Trains Class B tankers, which arrived and which are a crowdfunded project, which I ordered quite some time ago, which I'm really very impressed with. So let's get on with the video, and I'm afraid the Class B tankers have caused a bit of a problem. The 4F has them in a rake of tanks that it's pulling round and is finding them a bit of a handful, and it's slipped to a stand. So the Jinty, 3F Jinty, is going to be dispatched to couple up to it so they can double head and clear the main line. Just seen the goods trains running around, and in them you will have seen a trio of these Class B tanks, which have arrived since my last video from Revolution Trains, which, as you may know, is specifically for N-gauge, although I think they're branching into double gauge crowd-funded projects. And the Pendolino has been taking the world by storm. But about, I'm trying to think, over a year ago, they were thinking about doing Class B tanks for N-gauge, and I signed up for a triple pack, which arrived with me, as I say, just over a week or two ago, and I'm really very impressed with the quality and the detail on these tanks, particularly given the size. So if I put a penny in there, that will, just for those of you that are not familiar with N-gauge, give you an idea of a size that we're dealing with. The quality of the modelling, if I turn this under and show this, hopefully get this into the light a bit. Let's get this on to, there we go. You can just see the amount of detail that is in the undercarriage there. Various brakes and pipes and drums and things. You can tell I'm a technical person. And the SO sign on the model comes separate. It's a little metal sign that you stick onto the side, so you get a really good 3D effect, and it's already curved so that it's right for the barrel of the tank. So I've been really impressed with this. There's a good weight to this as well, and it rolls very freely, which is rather good because it's quite heavy, and I imagine it takes a bit of pulling. So I thought I'd just show you one of these in close-up. If you're thinking about getting them, you can buy them from a number of stores, I'm told, though obviously it's more expensive. This cost me, I think, £59 for the 3 of them, and I've got a feeling I've seen them in the store for about £80 for the 3 if you weren't one of the crowdfunders. So I'm pleased to get these to arrive, and even more happy to have them working on the layout. Strictly speaking, they're a little bit late for my period. I think they start from about the mid-1950s, whereas I'm pretty much the early part of the 50s, if not the very late 40s. But rule 1 applies. They look good. And given that my layout's in a wholly fictitious place with a combination of big 4 engines still in their livery turning up after nationalisation, having some Back to the Future element really doesn't give me a problem either. Okie doke. Right, let's move on to the next section now, and I'll speak to you in just a moment. In the last video, I spoke about the fact that I would have to do my first bit of ballasting, and that is what I've been doing. And I'll take you through what I've done so far in just a moment. One of the things that I've been struggling a bit with, one is actually reaching over. I mean, as you can probably see, I'm reaching over that distance to work at the back. And it has highlighted to me the importance of doing things from the back to the front from the beginning. Although, having said that, of course, the track plan up the incline is very recent. And if I had have put the single line up there and ballasted it all in, making the change to having a double line would have been a very difficult thing to do. And the second line went in because I've decided to change what will be at High Elven, which will be the raised section that will be at the other end of the layout, from a little chocolate boxy village with a single branch line coming into a quite small station, to having goods yards and other things up in that area. So there is an element to which that as your plans for the layout develop, inevitably you're going to be changing your mind. And if I'd have rushed off and done everything and ballasted everything in, it would have been much harder to make the changes as they developed in my mind. But it has presented me with a number of problems, and 1 or 2 of them were of my own making. When I laid the track down on cork, I used, which you can get from Gauge Master, some ready cut strips, and I laid the track on the strips, and the strips actually are of something like 3/16 depth. And of course at end gauge, once I started spreading ballast, it all just disappeared. And that, combined with the fact that behind the wall that goes up the incline, there are some gaps because it's not stuck to an entirely flat surface. So I not only lost the ballast off of all the track, it also decided to slip down the back of the wall, which meant that I spent a lot longer. That little bit of ballasting you see there has taken me well over a week, partly because stretching over all that way has given my back 1 or 2 problems, which meant that I had to rest up for a bit. So this has taken much longer than I expected, and I have yet to do, if I zoom in a little, let's take you up to the top and then I'll come back and show you what I've done. When we get to the top there, that is moving towards the part of the layout that is at my furthest reach. So that may take me a little while to do. But I do intend to start work on that, certainly up past the corner where the copse of trees has gone in. You may remember that when I built that hill, one of the comments that came back to me was from Andy Turner about putting a copse of trees into the very corner to sort of break up the fact that it still looks like a triangle. And I bought those trees from the model tree shop, which appear at quite a lot of exhibitions. They're a company based in Duns in the Borders, and I'm really pleased with those trees. I'll see if I can get a closer look in a bit when I come up to the other end, so I want to talk about the wall that I did. But coming back to the ballasting, don't know what happened there. Coming back to the ballasting, I have used the ballast magic, and I have ballasted, as you can see. It's ballasted from just inside the tunnel so that the ballast doesn't sort of stop at the tunnel's edge, up through the station and on over the points. The points were done yesterday, very tentatively, and I had one or two little issues of running, but which I've corrected, and then all the way up the line to where you see it stopping. And I've also put some scenic work in to provide an embankment or an edge to the line. That was done using paper mache because I had to plug gaps where the cork had ended. So there's paper mache gone in really on the same principle as I used down here, if I come gently. So that there's a bit of a contour there. And then I've used a mix of Jarvis grass scatters. I think some spring, summer and mid-green, I think. So to create my own mix, and that's gone over the top. Down towards the point there, I don't see if it really is showing a difference, but the around the point motor and up to the back scene is actually some Jarvis scatter, which is their asphalt scatter, and that's gone down rather nicely to do that area. The Ballast Magic, if you look, you can see that it's slightly mottled in look, and some of it's quite dark and some of it isn't. Now, as it happens, I'm not unhappy with that because it almost gives a kind of automatic weathering effect to the track, because the ballast itself is really quite light. You can, if I bring you over, you can see the ballast in the tin. It's a quite light grey, and actually I spread a bit more by the platform edge, which is not actually stuck down, but as this is not going to move, that's not going to cause me a problem, I don't think. So by the platform edge is the natural colour, and you can see that the Ballast Magic has actually made it go a bit black in places or dark grey. But as I say, it gives you an almost automatic weathering, which is rather pleasing. But the Ballast Magic has worked very well, I have to say. I'm using a 5-to-1 ratio mix, which is using it at quite a rate, of course. Partly because I'm reaching so far over, I really don't want it not to stick down. When I get to somewhere where I don't mind having to take it all up again and put it down if I've not done a strong enough mix, I will move nearer to, I think 7-to-1 they think is the optimum, that they suggest is the optimum ratio, but you can go down as little as 10-to-1. But we'll see. So I'll try that out in another part, which is more accessible and easier to clean up when we come to do that. But it is very easy. You make sure you give it a good mix. A few sprays of water from it's actually an orchid demister, but it's much the same thing. But not loads of water. Leave it a couple of hours. You come back and it's dry, and it's really working very well. And I'm really very pleased. Ballasting, I have discovered, which many of you will already know, is a thoroughly painstaking thing, and I'm not yet entirely sure whether I'm ever going to enjoy it, but we'll wait and see. It's probably because I'm stretching so far. What I intend to do next is to start putting some bushes and things up the incline. The coach that's there, which is rather defying gravity, I'm surprised it's able to stay there, because it's on quite a steady incline there, is partly there to help me see how much clearance I've got, because you will have seen that with my brush I have managed on the back scene to have some big brown daubs, but those are going to be covered up. I think what I'll do is I'll just build up some of the clump foliage in bits, because I don't think I can actually cut it fine enough, as a kind of low relief bush that will hide a lot of that brown stuff. And I want to put a few bushes in places along there, or the underbrush at the join of the grass, but I'm really pleased with the way the ballasting is going. It's doing what I want to do. I'm astonished at the difference that it makes, and one of the things, I don't know if it depends which order I eventually put the video together, but what I'll do is I'll run the train cam up the incline one way and then back down on as it would in normal running on the up and down lines, just so you can get a sense. And somebody did say to me, I think it was Ewan, who's got the YouTube channel The Growler, that once you start putting ballast down, it will really make the layout pop, and I think it does. It's really very good. So that's it for this section, and I'll come back and talk to you in a moment just about the wall that I've been doing at the far end and the next phase of scenic work that will be done up and around that area. Well, I've moved up to the other end of the layout now, just to have a quick look at the wall, which I mentioned in the last video that I'd be building. It's built from the foam board, which I've built the other parts of the wall from. There's the foam board. And because I was going around a curve, I thought the most sensible way to deal with this was actually to do it in short sections. I did toy with the idea of seeing if I could carve cuts in the back of the board that would then allow it obviously to curve, but that gives you then problems of how long the paper is on the outside, and I just didn't want to get into that particularly. So that is just simply the foam board. On the back of the foam board, the top half, 3/4 of an inch also has paper, so that as the train is running up, which you hopefully will have seen in the train cam shot, there is still wall on the other side. On the top, for capping stones this time, I've used the same as I put on the side wall by the church, which is evergreen styrene strip. I'll post in here a note of which size it is. And then at regular intervals, you just are using a hacksaw carved so that it looks like individual slabs. And again, each one of those is the same length as the width of the wall. So again, that's allowed it to curve round, and it seems to have worked quite well. It's also helped that as it goes round, it's not entirely even what the wall is standing on. So there is a slight step down in two places, but it looks quite natural, as if that is just what happens, rather than trying to use one piece, which would have been problematic. So all in all, taking that route has allowed me to be a little more specific when I'm cutting and putting things on. The wall is only round as far as there, because from that point on there's less clearance. And so what I think I'm going to be using, if I can just grab a piece of it instead of the foam board, is this stuff, which is, now strictly it's mount board, but I have to say I think it's pretty much the same stuff, just thinner. Only this was called mount board rather than foam board, which I got from an art shop. That will do just as well. And actually at that point I can make longer sections. But I think what I'm going to do is not do that bit of the wall until I've completed the ballasting all the way up from where it currently finishes, which is, you can't really quite see it here. It's just about where that capital is on where the wall at the station ends and the new wall starts. until I've got that round to just before the point outside Sharky's end, because I'll do the whole of the wall and Sharky's end station and finish off the abutment, which is only half made, and all of that in one go. And then that will then be ready for when I get to design and build the raised area, which is going to go where where all those things are sort of sheltering. So we'll see how that comes off. But that's where we are with that wall. I don't think I'll do any more on that before the next video, but I'm quite pleased with that. It's not entirely prototypical because the buttresses are absolutely upright, whereas and the wall wouldn't naturally have a fall back to spread the weight, but it fits in the space, which is the more important thing. Well, that just about rounds things up for this episode of Elvenhome. There was just one other thing which I keep forgetting to mention, which I was really impressed by. You may recall that a few weeks ago, well, several months ago, I bought another one of these, which is one of the Gagemaster walkarounds, and indeed it was this very one. And about 3 weeks ago, I was using it to control the train, and then it suddenly stopped. Let's put it back in the screen. It suddenly stopped controlling the train. The lights were all on, and I could press buttons, but it wasn't sending any signal. And I got in touch with Gagemaster, and they suggested one or two things to try, none of which worked. So they said, well, send it back for inspection. So I sent it back on a Thursday, I think it was, and by the following Wednesday they'd replaced it, and that's the Gagemaster lifetime guarantee in action. So I have to say to Gagemaster, very well done, and I'm very impressed with that customer service. So on that happy note, and with the engines happily trundling round, let's bring this episode to a close. Please do like the video if you've liked it. If you've got any comments, as I always say, please do let me have the comments. I really enjoy getting those and responding to people, and it sets off ideas in my mind. That's not always a good thing. But it does set off ideas in my mind, and also people are more than happy to pass on their learning and knowledge of things, which I'm really very grateful for. If you've not already subscribed, well, please do subscribe and hit the bell notification so you know when I'm uploading videos, and it'll be really lovely to have you along. And with that, I think we'll bring things to a close, and so until I talk to you again, bye-bye.